This week on KUJH, the Ukrainian community at KU reacts to Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. Find out what Native American legislators have to say about Education Commissioner Randy Watson and his remarks towards the Native American community.
And a new bill known as the Parents' Bill of Rights is currently in the Kansas House and facing opposition from educators.
Live from the studio in Stauffer Flint at the University of Kansas, you're watching KUJH News.
Welcome to KUJH. I'm Johan Marin.
And I'm Lily O'Shea Becker.
Russian forces have captured the Ukrainian city of Kirsan, making it the first major city to be overtaken in the latest of what has been nearly a week-long invasion.
Civilian areas continue to experience shelling as Ukrainian citizens take up arms to defend their country. Reporter Alyssa Wingo talked to Ukrainian scholars and students to hear their thoughts on the invasion. Alyssa?
The invasion has caused over 800,000 refugees to flee the country and more than 2,000 civilian casualties. Ukrainian KU students and professors are watching from afar as their hometowns are being shelled and occupied by Russian forces. With long lines to leave the country and troops stationed at the borders, Ukrainians on campus are praying for their family members who are stuck sheltering in place.
As Russian armed forces continue their attack on Ukraine, students and professors from the country are worried for their family's safety. Sophomore Mykola Hordachek's entire family is stuck sheltering in the city of Cherkasy, including his 13-year-old brother. He said his friends and family sent him videos of missiles striking nearby, and that he feels helpless being so far away from them.
My cousin and my aunt, they live in Kiev. She's a nurse, and they had to spend the last 4 days in the basement. And yeah, they didn't shower. There's nothing there. There is even no space to lay down. They have to sit and pray to be able to go home tomorrow and shower.
Ukrainian Slavic language and literature professor Vitaly Chernetsky is especially worried for his elderly father, who is stuck in the Ukrainian city of Odessa, where bombing has been reported.
It feels, of course, surreal, and it's very hard to work, and it's very hard to concentrate. You keep on checking on news in the internet, checking on family and friends to see if they are okay, trying to find out the details.
Visiting professor of political science Valery Zutsaty is a Russian native and expert in conflict in Eurasia and Eastern Europe. He said that Russia will likely continue escalation despite many setbacks, even if it means the end of Putin's empire.
If Russia backs down, that means the leader of Russia, the long-time leader of Russia, Vladimir Putin, will have very hard time to explain the defeat, military defeat, to the Russian people, and most likely he will have to step down, which obviously he doesn't want to.
Mykola Chernetsky and Zutsaty all had the same message. Russia's decision to invade has implications for the entire world. Zutsaty said if Putin goes for any members of NATO, there is a risk for World War III, since other members would have to send military support.
So Ukraine is enormously important for the future of Europe and for the future of the world in a way.
Although this is a frightening reality for them, the Ukrainian community on campus is banding together to support each other and raise awareness. They attended a rally in protest of the invasion in downtown Lawrence on Sunday and hope that more events will be organized to continue to inform Lawrence on what's at stake. Lily?
Thanks, Alyssa. President Joe Biden's first State of the Union address looked very different Tuesday night than it would have a few weeks ago, before Russia invaded Ukraine. Inflation continued to rise and coronavirus guidance dramatically shifted.
Olivia Cree reports the key takeaways from the speech.
Madam Speaker, the President of the United States.
President Joe Biden delivering his first State of the Union under the shadow of war abroad, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Together with our allies, we're providing support to the Ukrainians in their fight for freedom. Military assistance, economic assistance, humanitarian assistance.
Many Americans worry about the impact the conflict will have on already high levels of inflation. President Biden addressed those concerns.
I think I have a better idea to fight inflation. Lower your costs, not your wages.
Speaking to a highly divided Congress where his agenda has stalled, Biden points to his administration's successes, including passage of his $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill.
It's going to transform America, to put us on a path to win the economic competition of the 21st century.
With masks optional at the address, Biden acknowledged Americans were, quote, tired, frustrated, and exhausted, end quote, from the coronavirus pandemic, but also signaled the U.S. was entering a new phase.
If you already ordered free tests tonight, I'm announcing you can order another group of tests. Go to covidtest.gov starting next week, and you can get more tests.
I'm Olivia Akery, reporting for KUJH News.
Thank you, Olivia.
Biden also called for a unity of agenda for the nation and not to a desire for bipartisanship in Congress. Commissioner Randy Watson is under a 30-day suspension after making negative remarks towards the Native American community. But for some Native Americans, they believe the suspension is not enough. Board of Education rejected the resignation of Education Commissioner Randy Watson after Watson made negative remarks about Native Americans in a virtual education conference. The negative comments made were after Watson told a story of his cousins wanting to visit him in Kansas. The negative comments made by Watson include sayings like Native Americans raiding a town at any time. The board instead made a decision to suspend Watson for 30 days without pay, a decision that many Native Americans disagree with. Representative Kirsan Haswood says she was very disappointed and upset by the comments made.
This is an attack on our indigenous students.
Haswood says the comments reminded her of the experiences she faced as a Native American student.
There was many moments in the classroom where a teacher or a director of some sort, a leader in our community that's supposed to be representing us, have made some type of unconscious bias remarks, a joke.
Assistant Professor Rebecca Schlichting agrees with Haswood that the comments made by Watson are offensive.
I feel like if this would have happened to any other community, that it would have gotten more attention and something more seriously would have been taken.
Schlichting believes it's important for communities to be more aware of the Native American community and culture.
Really developing a curriculum that teaches the history of Native people in Kansas and talks about us in a modern sense.
While many Native communities are upset with the comments Watson made, many are hopeful with more Native American legislators, better action will be taken in the future. As of right now, Watson is currently under suspension, but there are current government proposals for further consequences of his actions.
Well, Johan, if you haven't noticed, today is a lot warmer than it was a week ago.
You're absolutely right. Now let's send it over to Halen Wilhite. Halen, what's the weather going to look like for the rest of the day?
Well, Johan, I could tell you it is still going to be a warm one. Temperatures are still holding on to those 80s at the moment. We did finally break that record of 81 degrees, and we saw a high of 86 degrees today. Feeling a lot more like summer today compared to the last couple of days, but we are going to be still continuing to deal with those warmer conditions for the next couple of days, but looking ahead, maybe seeing a little bit more some rain coming in this weekend and maybe the return of some cooler weather next week. But all more details about that upcoming system and how cold temperatures are going to be coming up later in the forecast.
Thanks, Halen.
Coming up on KUJH, parents and educators have mixed feelings about a new bill in the state legislature. Learn more after the break.
Welcome back to KUJH.
Lawrence Public Schools could be affected by a new bill, House Bill 2662, if passed. The bill, also known as the Parents' Bill of Rights, aims to give parents more control over their child's education. Let's take a look.
The bill would require schools to establish an online academic transparency portal, including course materials and class activities, allows parents to withdraw their child from activities and classes they don't agree with, gives parents authorities over their child's vaccination status, and says teachers are expected to teach without bias.
Every piece in the bill makes it more difficult for public school educators to actually do their job.
Many educators believe the bill is an attack on public school education, and some fear it could severely impact rural Kansas schools.
Well, I fear less for the students of Lawrence because Lawrence is not a place that's going to accept that sort of censorship lightly.
In February, faith leaders and equal rights advocates gathered in the Capitol to oppose the bill, which they believe is trying to eliminate diversity and inclusion in public schools, as it allows parents to object to materials that go against their beliefs. State Representative Christy Williams, who sponsors the bill, says the bill isn't targeting race or LGBTQ materials, but it is simply to improve transparency for parents.
There are so much more interesting conversations we could be having, so much more effectively we could be addressing issues in our students' lives.
House Bill 2662 needs to be approved by both Kansas houses and signed by Governor Laura Kelly before it becomes law. During today's meeting, the House heard from people on both sides of the issue and will take this issue up again tomorrow.
Buses on campus are in for a big change after nearly a decade of planning. Lawrence Transit is in the final stages of designing a new bus transfer facility. The multimodal facility will be located on the corner of Bob Billings and Crestline Drive.
This is a project that has actually been close to 10 years in the making. Lawrence Transit and KU as well have been operating bulk of our transfers in the downtown area.
The new location will benefit passengers as it is a prime location just outside of campus. The facility allows direct access to major streets like Iowa and 6th.
Living near that will be the best place in Lawrence to live without needing a car. There will be very frequent service between the new facility, campus, and downtown.
Construction on the new facility will begin this summer and is expected to be completed in January 2023. This week marks the beginning of Women's History Month.
Women's History Month has been a recognized event since Congress made it official in 1987.
Anna Dennison joins us with details about one of KU organization's plans to highlight women's contributions to our history. Anna?
That's right, Johan and Lily. The Emily Taylor Center here on the KU campus has events planned throughout the month to recognize women's contributions. The Emily Taylor Center for Women and Gender Equity has a month of educational events planned for Women's History Month. Their main event will take place on March 8th, International Women's Day, where there will be a screening of 9 to 5, The Story of a Movement, at the Kansas Union, followed by a discussion of the film with PhD candidate Neil Esquibel Kennedy.
In that spirit of looking back on women's history as a way to help liberate ourselves today, we've decided to focus on this labor movement in hopes of, looking at the way that they organized and they were able to achieve their goals as a way for us moving forward to think about how we can organize and achieve the emancipation of women.
The center is also putting on events such as a 19th Amendment anniversary celebration, a Smash the Patriarchy event, and a social media campaign.
We will be highlighting mostly the importance of Women's History Month, the origins of Women's History Month, rather than just sort of this idea of celebrating women, really looking into why is it important that we study history in particular.
The Emily Taylor Center offers resources for women and femmes and has year-round programs and events. Johan, Lily?
Thank you, Anna.
Visit emilytaylorcenter.ku.edu for more information on events and programming this month.
Coming up after the break, Halen Wilhite is bringing the weather. Stay tuned.
From adversity, we rose. We made history and became pioneers, voyagers, champions, Jayhawks. And when our chant rises, haunting and hallowed, Jayhawks are telling the world what's near. Victory.
Welcome back to KUJH.
Well, this week took quite a turnaround compared to last week. Halen, should I wear a jacket or break out the shorts next week?
Well, I can tell you, definitely can wear those shorts for the next couple of days until we get to next week. Then maybe going to be talking the return of some cooler weather. But as we're still going to be keeping a close eye on there for the next couple of days. We are going to be, as mentioned before, still staying warm for now, but also too looking ahead for this weekend, maybe seeing the possibility of some rains and some thunderstorms making its way into our area. Maybe even talking another chance for some snow arriving later next week. But before we get all into that messiness, we're just going to enjoy this nice, warm, summer-like weather for today. Still dealing with those mostly clear conditions out there. Temperatures still in those lower 80s at the moment and well across the region. We've got 84 degrees currently in Lawrence. We got 82 degrees in Topeka, 83 in Leavenworth, and 86 degrees down in Ottawa. And winds have been blowing a little bit. Starting to see a little bit of this dry line push through the area. So we are seeing those winds starting to shift a little bit more from the northwest to or at least from the southwest to eventually to that northwesterly wind. And we'll continue to keep a close eye on those winds for the rest of the season, but they should be tapering down. But we did shattered that record of 81 degrees set back in 1901. We did see that high of 86 degrees today here in Lawrence and a low of 38 degrees this morning. Still quite a jump from those early morning hours to those afternoon hours of today, but still dealing with those 80s across the region, well above average for this time of the year, and breaking a lot of records across the region. But been very, very quiet though. Still been dealing with those mostly clear conditions at the moment. Most of the clouds and systems have been staying off well to the north, but that will be all changing very soon once we especially get into the weekend. But still dealing with those very dry, very clear conditions. Actually get to see a little bit of some smoke off into the west. Some areas are burning off those grasses out there, but still very high fire danger still out there as we still dealing with those winds. But for tonight, temperatures will eventually be tapering off a little bit, finally breaking back into those 50s right around 11 o'clock, but we should be bottoming out at a low of 42 degrees for tonight with mostly clear skies, but still overall very cool and quiet conditions. And tomorrow we are going to experience a little bit of a cold front that will push through tonight, but not really going to affect temperatures all too much. Rather than 80 degrees, going to be still mild in those 60 degrees, but still beautiful conditions for the next couple of days until once we get into Friday night and Saturday and Sunday. That's when we're going to be talking a little bit of this disturbance that will be pushing through the area. Going to be keeping a close eye for the potential for some strong thunderstorms to the area. So far, there is a potential for some severe weather, a little bit up to the north of Lawrence, but still going to be keeping a very close eye on this region as it could easily shift within the next couple of days. But still going to enjoy this mild weather until about Sunday, when temperatures are going to really start to drop with this cold front all ahead of that system that will be bringing some thunderstorms to the region. But temperatures still staying at least in those 40s until once we get into Wednesday, and that's when we'll finally maybe break back into those 50s, but maybe going to drop back down as we were going to be tracking a potential for a little bit of some snow arriving on Wednesday night, and even going into Sunday. I forgot to mention too, but going into into Monday morning, I should say, maybe seeing the chance of some wintry mix as well. But definitely some great weather out there for right now, but definitely want to at least have that coat ready in hand once we go into next week. Coming up next, your latest updates in sports.
Thank you, Halen. Coming up after the break, Sam Lance brings us the latest in sports.
Stay tuned.
Where you go to college makes a statement about you. This place will become a part of you, your identity for life. The University of Kansas, a great place to be you.
Welcome back to KUJH.
Now we send it over to Sam Lance with season updates of two different KU sports teams. Sam?
Thanks, Lily. Both KU football and KU baseball are in full swing of their spring seasons. Football started spring practices this week, and baseball is currently hosting its home opener. Caroline Soro is live at Hoagland Ballpark and talked to some fans about expectations for this year's KU baseball team. Caroline?
Yeah, Sam, Kansas baseball is playing its home opener against Missouri State right now. The Jayhawks are 3-3 on the season and look to bounce back after losing their series over the weekend. Let's hear what some fans had to say about the season so far.
We've got a lot of great talent, I think, on this team, and how the team performed last year in the Big 12 tournament, I thought was really kind of a sign of things coming for a great year this year.
And look at the weather today, it's awesome.
beautiful day.
Yeah.
This is what baseball's all about. I just hope they do well and get to the tournament in Omaha.
The Jayhawks gave up 5 runs in the first inning, and they're currently down 6-1 in the bottom of the 5th, so they're going to have to get the bats rolling if they want to pull this one out. Back to you guys in the studio.
The baseball team looks excited to be back on the field, but so does KU football. I was at the Jayhawks spring practice yesterday and had the opportunity to chat with the players and head coach Lance Leipold. Here's what they said about being back on the field. Kansas football started spring practices on Monday, marking the first of 15 practices before KU's spring football game on April 9th. KU head coach Lance Leipold missed out on the opportunity to coach the Jayhawks last spring due to his oddly timed hiring in late April, but he's excited to be back on the field.
You don't really realize what you're missing, you know, when you're in the middle of a fall camp, but to see this extra time and, you know, development time, meeting time, you know, time to get fundamentals worked on, all those things. It's been refreshing here these first couple days.
The Jayhawks have hired 4 new on-field coordinators heading into the spring. One player with a new position coach is Kenny Logan, whose senior leadership propels the Jayhawks.
Guys are competing. Guys are flying around at a high level. I think both sides of the ball have improved tremendously since last season. I think we're taking the proper steps in the right direction to do what we have to do this fall.
Mike Nowitzki, who followed Leipold from Buffalo last year by transferring to KU, touched on how sharp practice has been so far.
Our culture is starting to really take off, and you know, there's a big sense of pride and just straining every day to get better.
From observing practice, I saw tons of energy surrounding the program. At one point, Jalen Daniels and Devin Neal were dancing together, and there were several other instances where players were hyping each other up. Like Nowitzki said, it seems the KU culture is hitting a new level. That wraps it up for our KUJH Sports Update. Now, let's send it back to Lily and Johan.
Thanks, Sam. Coming up, an elementary teacher gave her students a unique assignment for their grade.
Stay tuned.
You may not hear it at first, but it's there. Our chant, rising. On this summit, callings converge, voices unify into a chorus that sounds out for good, for greatness. Can you hear it?
Welcome back to KUJH. A third grade teacher at Deerfield Elementary had a special assignment that sparked some interest with her students and in the community.
Sarah McDonough takes a look into what those third graders did and what got the community buzzing.
Laura Amlung's third grade class at Deerfield Elementary had a unique writing assignment. Amlung wanted to find a fun way to teach her students opinion writing. So, she looked to a sweet treat for help: donuts.
I started the activity with saying, like, what if you had the chance to have your donut featured at a bakery? How would you change your writing to make it more convincing, to make people want to choose yours, not based on the picture, but rather what you wrote about it?
And the students got to work creating their donuts and writing their opinion pieces.
I remember thinking, oh man, it would be so cool to be able to see their donuts come to life.
Amlung had asked other bakeries but got no response. So she took to Facebook. Infusion's Bakery offered their services to create these donuts, but with a twist. The bakery held a contest with all students' designs, and the community voted for their top 12 donuts. The contest reached over 100 people on Facebook.
Started as something really small and grew to something really big, really bigger than what I was expecting it to be.
The 12 winners will have their donuts made to include in a special order for the community to purchase. For KUJH, I'm Sarah McDonough.
All proceeds from the orders will go directly to Deerfield Elementary. You know, I wish I would have decorated donuts back in elementary school.
Me too. I think I would have smeared some strawberry icing right on top.
I think I would have smeared some chocolate icing.
Sounds delicious. Thank you for watching KUJH. Tune in next week at 4 p.m.
For more coverage, be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter to visit our website at tv.ku.edu.
Have a good evening.